Hi guys, it's Aaron Wilson. I'm at NRG Stadium. And it's an interesting day. It was a walkthrough practice. We had some interesting health updates and some roster stuff to discuss with you guys. Obviously, it's a day after the trade of John Metchie III, the wide receiver, former Alabama standout, to the Philadelphia Eagles in exchange for Harrison Bryant, who had his first practice with the Texans. They have some hope for Harrison. They remember him making some big plays against them when he played for the Cleveland Browns, former fourth-round draft pick of the Browns. But, we're going to start with the offensive line. So Cam Robinson, as I've reported, was not a long-term injury. It was, cost him a couple of weeks, but it wasn't the kind of injury that was going to affect his status for the Rams game. So he returned to practice. We saw some signs last week that he was ramping up, and this time he did practice. He worked with the second-team offense at left tackle. So Arion Tertiary, the rookie who's been so impressive, was the left tackle. The left guard was Laken Tomlinson. The center was Jake Andrews. The right guard was Ed Ingram, who's had his moments. And, of course, right tackle, Titus Howard, who didn't play in the preseason game. So a couple of things there. On Robinson, I thought he looked pretty good. And if he doesn't have any setbacks, then I think he'll be available and they'll have a choice to make. Is he the starting left tackle or is he the swing? And I think Arion Tertiary, even though it's his natural left tackle spot, it makes a lot of sense to have, obviously, your best five. So best five to me, this is my opinion, Cam Robinson at left tackle, Tomlinson at left guard. He's been very solid, just like as advertised. He's a former Pro Bowl selection, and he lines up there every day, puts it on the line. Jake Andrews, to me, has won the center job, whether they want to declare it or not. Right guard, I would go with Titus Howard, who has prepared to play the right guard position, is strong. Even though he can play right tackle, and I think he looks good at right tackle, I think it's better to have him at right guard and have Arion Tertiary play right tackle. You can always make Tertiary the left tackle later, but for now, if Robinson's lower leg, if that checks out the way it has been, then that's how I would go with it. And we'll see. There were some compliments from Nick Chubb about the improved physicality of the line. And there was some talk from Arion Tertiary again about the culture that Cole Popovich, the offensive line coach and run game coordinator, is building. So some good things to hear about the offensive line, which has really been the focal point of everything and our focus and the emphasis for the team and the coverage, for what we're looking at, in terms of what's the most important thing. Like they say, WIN, what's important now, when. Okay, well, the offensive line, that's got to take precedence over anything. That the offensive line has got to be sound. You've got to keep the quarterback standing. As the McNairs will tell you, you have to have, the type of protection, and you're going to try to have an elite offense. So, some good signs. And again, we've talked a little bit about. We reviewed the game. So, Nico Collins, sharp touchdown pass. Christian Kirk, we're seeing some good routes. I had a good conversation today with Jaden Higgins about the route tree, the growth that he's had as a young player, his improvement. So all good things with him. In terms of Harrison Bryant, I've had a couple of opinions shared with me. I've had people tell me, well, the Texans don't have a very good tight end group in terms of Dalton Schultz. Some people think Kate Stover will be good. But, in terms of him versus Irv Smith, Harrison Bryant's kind of a combo tight end. He was the John Mackey Award winner at Florida Atlantic. But one general manager said to me, just a guy, just okay. Nothing bad and nothing great. And so that's kind of the book on Harrison Bryant, who's played for the Raiders. Obviously, if the Eagles felt he was absolutely vital, then they don't trade him. They sign him to a one-year, $2 million contract. But do I think that it makes some sense possibly to have him instead of Irv Smith? Yeah, if he plays well, then you could do that. Smith is a great blocker. They have a decision to make, as I talked about in my roster projection, between Jakob Johnson and British Brooks. Johnson gives you a lot of knowledge of the Nick Haley system. Background, he was his coach with the New England Patriots, Haley was. And then you have a decision to make on whether you will go forward with Jakob, and he can play tight end as well, as a blocker mostly. So there's some interesting choices there when it comes to tight end, and we'll be debating all of this all week. So some of the things just from today, we do have a personnel move, and we're going to have another one too. But first one's first. They signed former Colorado wide receiver Juwan Winfrey, who's also played for the Green Bay Packers. He's played sparingly in the NFL. They worked out Winfrey and Cornell Powell, who remains under consideration for possible addition for this week. So we'll see if they sign Powell in addition to Juwan Winfrey. But with Juwan Winfrey, that deal is done. So he joins the team. They were looking at Jared Wayne. The hamstring injury was not where it needed to be. So they had to get other receivers in for this week. We'll see, do they move on from Quintez Cephas, who was the last receiver they signed. So that'll be interesting to see just in terms of availability. Looking ahead this week to the Lions joint practices, that's their anniversary about competing against another former Big Ten guy, Michigan man, Aiden Hutchinson. So they'll be a really talented group. He said this will be super beneficial. I agree. That joint practice will be very interesting. They have an outstanding secondary. They have a very good front seven in terms of linebacker and the front they have. So I think this is going to be a good test for the Texans offensive line. And then I don't expect them to play a lot of starters, if any starters, in the third and final preseason game. And then they're going to cut the roster down to 53 players. And we've been talking a lot about the 53. And of course, that's of heavy interest for everyone in terms of how they orchestrate, everything with the offensive line. So looking at a couple of other things that happened today, Dameon Pierce practiced, and I thought he looked good. This was his, the most I've seen from him since coming back from strained quadriceps. This was a light practice. They worked out for about an hour at NRG Stadium, inside the stadium, and so it was a good stadium workout. And of course, we're out of the heat, which was great because it's extremely hot, as you guys know. Everybody that lives here in the city of Houston, it is brutal out there. Oppressive heat. We will be back out on the field 9:30 a.m. Tuesday. There will be another practice on Wednesday, and then I will get on the plane to head to the 8 Mile, Detroit, Motown. And we'll cover the practice the next day. I'll have a day off. I'll previewing the game and doing some more coverage, and we're doing some more features. I had an interview today, like I said, with Jaden Higgins. I'll have a story up about Daryl Taylor and his helping the homeless. He was once homeless himself, so you guys probably saw the video, but I'll be writing an article for click2houston.com and looking at a couple other injury situations. I would be remiss not to mention Blake Fisher, which I reported, you guys probably saw. He has sprained his ankle. He is out indefinitely. I'm told it's a milder ankle sprain, but he is out for now. Another injury update with Christian Harris. This is a positive one. Looked very good in practice today, moved very well. And I think their plan is working in terms of rest and, kind of gradually building and getting him up to speed as you try to get him back to a practice mode and then a game mode. So those are good things, good developments there. But in terms of roster, I like Ed Ingram, Jarrett Patterson, and Juice Scruggs to make the team. I think that Blake Fisher will probably be the swing tackle. People have asked me about Trent Brown. Trent is still not ready to practice, coming back from the torn patellar tendon. Lots of progress from Foley Fatukasi and Derek Barnett. Kurt Hinish still on the active physical and able to perform list because of a knee injury. So unfortunately, that's keeping him from practicing right now. And I'm not really seeing any of the backup linemen making a move like a Zach Thomas or Jalen Thomas. One of the younger linemen I thought has played very well is Eli Cox. I like what I've seen from Eli. In terms of quarterback, Keaton Slovis has probably outplayed Graham Mertz, but I think they could have Mertz on the injured reserve, coming off of the knee. And then I do like what I've seen from Woody Marks lately. The 40-yard game was outstanding. In the tight end competition, looks like Luke Lachey, Trey McKitty are trailing Irv Smith and Harrison Bryant. That's just the way it is. Same thing with Jahar Jordan and J.J. Taylor behind, the Nick Chubb, Dameon Pierce, Woody Marks, Dara Ogunbowale group. So we'll see how that goes forward. I think Dana Quattry needs to get healthy soon. I'm starting to wonder if he's not going to be ready for the season. It's not looking great right now. And just kind of looking around at some of the other defensive personnel, I do think the possibility of a 4-3 is there for the Texans, where they could do some things with 3 linebacker alignments, and that could be any combination. It could be Aziz Al-Shire, Christian Harris, and Henry Toto, or it could be Aziz Al-Shire, Christian Harris, EJ Speed. So we'll see how they go forward with that. It's going to be very interesting to me to see how they handle that. But I do believe that there's going to be playing time for all of those guys. So they're going to definitely look at that. And then just looking at a couple other things that kind of came up today, and pull up a few things here. So just kind of in our conversation with D'Amico Ryans, liking the physical brand of football that he saw, especially the line. He felt like Ariata Ursary did a very good job at left tackle. That's impressive. They were impressed with Blake Fisher. Why not? Blake didn't allow pressures. Blake was run blocking well. This was his best game that I've seen from him in terms of preseason football and probably even regular season football. So I think the light kind of clicked on a little bit for him, but unfortunately he's injured now. And on the Mechie trade, just reflecting on this, I think D'Amico, was being very, very heartfelt and sincere in his comments that it was not easy to trade John Mechie. Called him inspiration to him and to a lot of people, obviously with his successful victory in the battle against leukemia. So that was impressive, and just, they're happy with him. With Harrison Bryant, they like the way he can run, they like the way he can compete, they remember the big plays. They are impressed with Damon Arnett, and they like the way he's embraced this opportunity, the second chance, and he had an interception. And so they are pretty happy about him, just how he's taken this chance and run with it. And they feel like he's doing some nice things. You want him to keep improving on technique, and they're pleased with where he is. So they feel like he has all the physical tools, and they have a decision to make. I think I've actually heard this. There is interest around the league in Damon Arnett should he not make the Texans' initial 53-man roster and not sign with their practice squad. So there are other teams. I know the 49ers, the Packers have showed interest in the past. I can see the Colts being interested with their cornerback situation. So there's going to be interest in Damon Arnett, so the Texans have to consider that if they want to keep him here and how they will handle things. So interesting to talk to Nick Chubb, and progression from Nick. I think that he looked better, obviously a step forward. It's encouraging. And also we talked with Kamari Lassiter today, so a good conversation with Kamari about the way he's able to apply the technique and the things he does out on those practice fields and bring it to the game. So just an outstanding competitor, someone that I think very highly of in terms of his growth and how he competes against the Nico Collins of the world. So it's good. And then to me the biggest picture is Ursary, because it looks like they really have nailed that pick. So I'm impressed with Ursary. I think there's a good chance that Ursary will be a quality rookie starter. And finally, at last, right? Because after they've missed on some other picks, at least initially, that haven't panned out for them so far, now it looks like they've struck gold with the Golden Gopher, Arianta Ursary. Mr. Kansas City, 6'6", 331 pounds, 5.01 speed in the 40-yard dash. Shut down Abdul Carter. Has been pretty lights out so far in these games. I know that they have trouble blocking Will Anderson and Dino Hunter. I've said it for the umpteenth time, but that's a real thing, that they have trouble with those guys. It doesn't mean that they can't block someone else. Guys, we'll have more coverage. Look for my Jaden Higgins interview. I'll be posting that. And, of course, this one you'll be hearing from me on many fronts. And then, again, we'll take this show on the road to Detroit. So I'll try to maybe I'll limit my Eminem references and things like that. But it's possible that there will be a few discussions of the 8 Mile. So until next time, guys, no B Rabbit, it's Aaron talking football with you, talking Texans. Thanks, talk to you soon.